We are moving on now, and up next, we want to take a look at what has been happening in the German Bundesliga as far as the matches are concerned, the restart games. Chris Harrington of our DW Partners is waiting as Omofoma Ebare fires him those questions that bring out the best of information from the Bundesliga right here.
Hello and welcome. I am Omofoma Ebari. It's time for the latest from Germany's domestic football league, the Bundesliga. For that, we are joined by Chris Harrington from our partner station DW in Berlin. Chris, there has been plenty of action this past week. You call this a match day of missed matches? Let's start with Bayern Munich. It seems the defending champions are on their way to the 8th straight title with their most recent victory over Fortuna Düsseldorf.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, the way the defending champions beat up on Fortuna Düsseldorf, it was expected. You know, the match prior to that kickoff was a more important match for Bayern Munich, of course, defeating Dortmund in Der Klassiker thanks to a beautiful chip shot from Joshua Kimmich. But this most recent opponent, I mean, Fortuna Düsseldorf, there's a team flirting with relegation. And the star of the show was Robert Lewandowski once again. He netted a brace. And what's more impressive about the brace Lewandowski netted was now he's netted against all 18 Bundesliga clubs. I mean, if you think about this man's history, it's kind of a shock that he hadn't done that prior to this. Even his head coach, Hansi Flick, you know, before the kickoff kind of teased Lewandowski and said he was surprised he hadn't scored against Fortuna, but obviously he silenced all doubters, and he now moved up to 43 goals in all competitions. I mean, but it was expected for them to run rampant over the struggling side, and that's exactly what we saw with the 5-0 finish. Another standout performance. Of course, it was a committee effort, but Thomas Müller is another player that's coming out and pretty much revitalizing his career. When you look at his assist numbers, well, he called one player, Alphonso Davies, known as Fonzie at Bayern Munich, the Roadrunner. You know, because not only did Davis, you know, score the fifth and final goal just to put the nail in the coffin for Bayern Munich, you know, but obviously his speed. And if you think back and you think about Alphonso Davies, his speed really showed when he was able to stop Erling Haaland in his tracks in the match prior to the Fortuna Düsseldorf game. You know, so all in all, Davis, of course, you know, the sense of humor that he has, he thought it was funny, and he's familiar, like many people around the world are very familiar with what the Roadrunner and who the Roadrunner is, a very fast cartoon. And Davis is proving to have wheels of flaming speed on the pitch, and the nickname fits, you know, but all in all, it was an expected outcome and all steam ahead. I mean, the only hope now that other clubs have that are chasing the title is the fact that Bayern could slip up a time or two, but I think that's highly unlikely.
Press, what about the second place Dortmund and their crop of young talent? Erling Haaland was injured for the trip to Paderborn. But what about Jordan Sancho? Did the English winger finally start?
Yeah, you know, I've been calling for Jadon Sancho needing to step up, needing to really show his presence on the pitch, and we got all of that and more against Paderborn. You know, this was another goal fest, a 6-1 finish over the struggling Paderborn in Dortmund's favor. The strange thing about this match, it was all the second half. Everything happened in the second half. Dortmund were frustrated until about the hour mark when Torgan Hazard opened up the scoring. Then swiftly, Jadon Sancho followed. And then just to put the exclamation point on Sancho's performance, he netted a hat trick, the first in his career. And it just shows how happy and thrilled Dortmund are to have a fully fit Sancho back in the lineup. You know, a hat trick, obviously, you can't deny that does make a difference. And there were some other things in that match I'll get to later. But in terms of Sancho's performance, it was a very needed, you know, because you consider, you know, what the distance is. Obviously, there's some ground to make up if Dortmund are going to make a late push for the title. And having a Sancho perform the way he performed, it gives them hope. Nonetheless, definitely it does that. 7 points clear at the summit. Obviously, that's a lot of ground to make up, but then we have other competitions to be concerned about as well. You know, we have the Champions League, you know, and so forth. And if Dortmund don't make the Champions League, obviously that'll be a disappointment. I don't know if people will consider it a disappointment if they don't dethrone Bayern this season. You know, they've had their opportunities, and most recently we saw that in the Klassiker. They let it slip through their fingers. But The most important thing is Jadon Sancho is firing on all cylinders. Remarkable talent on the pitch, and he reminded the Bundesliga why he is the most expensive price tag in the transfer window.
Considering the title is looking set as you predicted, the table is quite tight from places 3 through 9. What about the race to the Europa and Champions League? Which side helped or hurt their chances?
Well, it's a very tight, as you mentioned, 15 points are left on the table, left for teams to scrap over. RB Leipzig and Gladbach are sitting 3rd and 4th. Leverkusen is right there for the Champions League contention. Last year, it was Leverkusen who went. So it's a very close call to see it. It depends, which teams will have more bite, going down this last stretch of action. But the Europa League is the more reachable goal for teams. When you look at teams 6 through 9, Wolfsburg are at 6 with 42 points. So is Hoffenheim right behind them. Same amount of points, 42. Even Schalke's been miserable as of late. They're 10th with 37 points, but anything's possible in terms of teams reaching that hump in that competition. Obviously, the teams want, to reach that premier competition. But in my opinion, the best team that looks suited for that is going to be Hertha. Hertha Berlin sit at 9th, and they're in a good spot. Why? Bruno Labbadia. Ever since Bruno Labbadia has come over, the team is unbeaten. They had an impressive, draw with RB Leipzig. That's a team that's had the top of the table a few times, and moving forward, when you consider the momentum and the wind behind their sail in terms of having bite and not being beaten yet, you have to like their chances of actually cracking that Europa League platform and entering in that competition, because right now momentum is more important than ever, and I like the capital club Hertha Berlin right now in terms of reaching the Europa League. I think the top 4, look set in stone. I think it's a toss-up between Gladbach or Leverkusen, similar to what it was last season. But with young stars like Kai Havertz for Leverkusen and Marcus Thuram for Gladbach, I think you can't discount any of that talent. I think we have to watch this match by match to determine who will reach that. And I wouldn't be surprised, rather, if it's decided on the very last match day 34. That's what I'm looking forward to. And that'll keep the league just really exciting and interesting, for a lot of the fans out there unable to attend the action inside the stadium.
Chris, before we let you go, did anything else hit your radar?
Yes, it did, and unfortunately it's a bit of a somber note. Justice for George Floyd. I'm sure that name resonates with not only Americans but everyone abroad as well. He was an African American who died and was killed basically while in police custody. Jadon Sancho, after he scored his goal, he raised his T-shirt, and he had a T-shirt that said "Justice for George Floyd." Now, this issue with African Americans, you could call it being targeted by the police, being treated unfairly by the police, and a lot of times resulting in the death, unexplainable for the most part, when it comes to African Americans in this situation, in this scenario. And not only with Jadon Sancho, but his teammate also, had the similar sentiment. Players across the Bundesliga, showed their respect, whether it was to social media. And one thing Jadon Sancho did touch on, he touched on his hat trick, but obviously he did call it a bittersweet moment. There are more important things going on in the world today that we must address and help make a change. Strength in numbers, I think we are stronger together, was, his final message. And I think that he definitely does have, strength and power behind those words, and I think that's a very important message to communicate. Now, one thing I would say about the protests, the league will convene and decide whether or not any policies have been broken. Because there is a policy with the German Football Association that says there are no political statements. Such statements are prohibited, and the controlling body will visit this issue in the coming days and scrutinize the circumstances. But I hope they fall on the side of what is the greater good. And I would say the greater good in this situation is to give the players who could be victims themselves in similar scenarios an opportunity, to voice, their protests for the world to see. And hopefully, this situation does resolve itself. But we've seen protests, all over the world regarding Black Lives Matter and police brutality. And I myself, as an African American, obviously, my heart goes out to the situation, and I'm fearful myself when I'm in those predicaments. So I do hope that things do improve, and this message is accepted to the audience that it needs to be accepted by, basically, and then we could all come together and get along and move past, this disruption in society.
Thanks for the Bundesliga update, Chris Harrington, from our partner station, DW in Berlin, Germany. Join us on Friday for the weekend's edition of the program. I am Omofoma Ibari.
Okay, that was Chris Harrington and Omofoma Ibari in the interface on the Bundesliga. It's only right here that you get that kind of incisive analysis on the Bundesliga, the league that is trailblazing, that is leading the way for others to follow as far as the restart agenda is concerned in world sports. My name is Edet Basi. Do have yourself a wonderful time, and we'll see you again in the next package on Sports Extra right here on Your Africa Independent Television. Do stay safe, and bye now.